Alright, this morning we're going to learn about the in operator, and this will be really useful for people who are in, or I should say who have not done object-oriented programming, because we're going to be using logic very similar to arrays. In usually specifies multiple values. So if I were to say, especially in SQL, what is the price of the S&P 500 where it equaled 160 or whatnot, or let's say 600, actually 666, it will go and it'll find a specific value or not, right? It'll either return a value or it won't return a value, okay? Well, in is a little bit different. And usually when you're doing things like that, you're doing greater than or less than, as many of you know. In is a little bit different because you're basically saying if it's in these values, and you may be looking for distinct values. As many of you know who probably have done SQL, when you're using the in operator, you may be looking for ranges that fall within specific and distinct values. For instance, I may be looking for oil wells that are in a specific area in Texas and in North Dakota and in Nebraska, and that's it. And so those may be completely different numbers. It may be like 16 and 17, and then 52 and 51, and then over there 35 and 36. So obviously we can't sit there and apply the greater than or equal to. We're going to be specifically looking at in. So we're going to be looking at numbers here this morning. And first of all, let's do the collection. And so we have the column numbers, or I'm sorry, number, I should say. And what I want to do is I want to look at all the numbers that are in 9 and 11. Now, note, number, the key, the number is not wrapped in quotes. This is not a string. This is an actual number. So we have to treat it as such, and I'll show in a second why that is. So let's go and let's call our former query. So now what we want to do is we want to specify in our find clause here, number, and we're going to call the operator in, which is $in, and this is where it's very similar to object-oriented. We're dealing with an array, so we're going to open a bracket and we're going to say 9, 11. We're going to close the bracket, the square bracket that is, then we're going to call the curly bracket and the curly bracket. And then, of course, dot pretty. And you'll see what it does is it returns where the value is 9 or 11. And this is kind of like an OR, like I was saying with oil wells. I mean, if you wanted to look at 6 oil wells and the IDs could be anything, it's like an OR. The difference is that you can just line it up in an array, okay? So let's see what would happen if we wrap those in quotes. We're dealing with numbers here. This would be really stupid to do, but I've seen people do this in general, and they're like, well, I don't see why it doesn't call it with quotes. Well, here's why. So let's see. Whoops, I hit 0. Let's see. So now we're doing number. Remember, the values are stored as numbers. There's no quotes. These are not strings. So this number key is not storing any strings. What we're going to do, though, in our find clause here is we're going to look for numbers in, and we're going to say in quotes 9 and in quotes 11, and we're going to see what we get. We don't get anything. So if it's a number, no strings, no quotes, then you want to make sure that you specify it as a number.